Chapter 3, Assertions and Element Interactions. Today, we're going over Module 3.2, Common Element Interactions. By the end of this lesson, you will interact with page elements in Playwright just like a regular user would. First off, let's talking about clicking on elements. You do this by appending .click to click on a button or other item on a web page. For example, if I had page.click on login button and you're passing in the element you want to click on. Next, let's talk about typing into input fields. So we have two ways of doing this. We have .fill and .type. If you want to completely replace whatever's in a text box and basically copy and paste your text, you do .fill. But let's say you have a drop down that updates by each letter. You can type in each letter one at a time doing .type. Now let's talk about drop downs. Let's say you have a drop down option that you want to select. You would use .select option, passing in the option you want to select. The first part you're passing in is the value for your web element. Next, the second part is the value that you want to select. Checking and unchecking checkboxes. You simply put .check or .uncheck passing in your web element. Now let's say you want to hover over an item on the web page. You simply do .hover. Last but not least, we have drag and drop. The simplest way to implement drag and drop is to pass in first your element you want to drag and drop, and then second part is the drop zone you want to place it in. Now let's actually practice some of these interactions. So if we go back to Visual Studio Code, let's create a new test. Let's change our test to be element interactions. And for our website here, we're going to use demo.playwright.dev to do MVC. Now we're going to type in some to-do items on this web page. We're going to do await. We're going to start first with just this. We're going to add Learn Playwright on this web page. So let's save this, type in clear, and now run our test. We're going to do npx playwright test debug. That way we can debug what's going on. So we have our inspector and our test is starting. First, let's go to this website here, playwright.dev. Step over and we're taken to this web page. Next, we're going to fill or insert text into that text box. So we step over again and we see the text box had the text inserted. Now let's click the enter button. Now we're going to pause the test to debug. And run our test one more time and add more to it. Okay, we're stepping over again. Enter is pressed. Now let's inspect. Bring this to the bottom. And now let's check the first to do item. So if we add hover over right here, and here's our checkbox right here. Now let's go back to our code. So now we're gonna add await, page.locator. Now interact with that checkbox. To-do list. Ally input. And now type equals checkbox dot first and check. So we're gonna see if it actually checks that item now. Let's save this. Run our test again. We added our item. We then have our checkbox. We click it. Everything is good. Next, we have this item here that we're going to investigate. So inspect. And next we have clear completed. We're going to hover over this and see what happens. So let's get this web element. We have button dot clear completed to identify it. And we're going to hover over it first and then click it. So let's close these items and get back to our test. So you have await page.hover. As we said, we got button dot clear completed. And then after that, the same thing. I'm going to click on that item. Let's save this. Run our test. Step over. We have a typo here that I'm going to update. I misspelled completed. So let's close this out. Let's save this and run again. And now we can see it hovers over. And now actually click. And it cleared everything. Now to finalize and wrap up our test, we're going to make sure this to-do list has 0 items and assert on that. So now if we run this one more time, we're going to pay attention and see. Inspect. See, when we have items in our to-do list, we have this web element here called to-do list, which is an unordered list that has these items. So after we remove all these items, this list should be 0 and not exist because it's empty. So we're going to add that validation to end our test to make sure that to-do list count, which would count all the items in a list, should equal 0. Clear this one more time and add our assertion. So we have await, expect, page.locator, to-do list li for our list to have a count equal to 0. Now let's run our test. We're going to switch it to headed. And everything passed, but it went really fast. Let's redo it. And debug mode. So we're stepping through each line again, adding an item, then removing that item, and making sure the list now has a count of 0. Just for validation purposes, let's change this to 1 and see if it still passes. So saved. We're stepping over our items again. And now for our validation, it should fail. You see us waiting to have the number 1, and that never happens. And as you can see, the test fails. And if we go to our test, let's see the results. We see it timed out, waiting for the item to exist and had the count of 1. What it received was 0, because our count is 0. And if we see our full test steps, we see all the test steps passed previously up until that. Now let's fix this back to be 0 and run our test one last time. And this time, everything passed. Let's get our report. And we see all of our steps passed.